Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tabletop Summit discussing tabletop games in 2021. It's the tabletop panel for WonderCon at home. I'm joined by some fantastic panelists today, and we're going to have a lot of great discussions. I'm Ross Thompson, a marketing manager at the OP, and I'm your moderator for today. I'm really excited that we can have this, so we'll kick it off. Deirdre.
Hi, I'm Deirdre Cross. I'm the Director of Product Development at Funko Games.
Thank you. And Amber?
I'm Amber Cook. I'm the Marketing Director for Roll20, a virtual tabletop platform for playing tabletop RPGs.
Awesome. Ivan?
I'm Ivan Van Norman. I'm the head of Darrington Press, Critical Role's new publishing company, as well as a partner at Hunters Entertainment.
Thank you. Omari?
Hey, I'm Omari Akil. I'm the founder and lead designer at Game Brothas.
Thank you. And Chris?
I am Chris Metzen. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Warchief Gaming.
Thank you. So here we are virtually because we can't be in person at WonderCon. And because of that, there's so much gaming that's happening right now virtually as well. Right now, we're seeing that gaming spends are still way up. People are buying games. People are excited to play games, from Kickstarter to online purchases to going to the game store still with a doorstop drop off, and all different kinds of things are happening, which is great. So gaming is experiencing a wonderful boom right now. People can look and see that all over, from card games, board games, miniatures games, and even digital PDF plays and so forth. So kind of our question that to kick things off is, in the last year, how has gaming changed? Like, what are trends you're noticing? What is changing in the gaming environment? It's been a long time since we've gone to a show or held a game at our house, but people are still playing games and having a good time. What are you all noticing? We'll kick it off, Omari.
For me, I think what I've noticed, at least in friends and people I still have connection with in relation to games, one thing is really our sort of collective realization of how important games were to just our social lives. And I think we've all just really recognized how important that's been. And so the games that we look for, I think, are now our games that really maximize that social connection. And people are looking for all sorts of ways to make that happen. So I think, yeah, the sort of community in general is just really just taking note about how much we value that. And I think the games are starting to reflect that, and how we use them and how we approach them it's just leaning into that a little more.
Trying to find ways to do it like that, just to riff off of that, like
Right.
It's so important that people are trying to find a way, in whatever way they can, in whatever capacity they can, as safely as they need to feel, right? Whether it's like potting up and playing with the specific group of people and running games there, or going digital and going virtual, right? And trying to trying to get over that technology hurdle that no one was interested in jumping over previously, but now they're doing it just because the hunger is so deep, right? So
it's been interesting too. The irony being, we had actually started a gaming club a couple years ago that was running really well up until COVID. And it's interesting, the balance between people actually showing up and playing things like D&D, things like Warhammer, tabletop war games. And the other balance point was just people coming into hobby that just wanted to hang out and noodle and model and paint and talk shop. So while that has largely been disrupted, it's been cool to see that at the very least the hobby component has been really, really healthy. Everyone from home, they'll do over Discord or whatever, just kind of have hobby nights where everyone just kind of has a live monitor and we're just noodling away, listening to music.
Ross has his paint party that he likes to do. SoCal beach draws
every Saturday. I'm actually missing
Saturday.
It today. So yeah.
Like we just do nothing other, don't even talk to each other sometimes. They're just painting.
Yeah. And it's comforting, right? Like just knowing you have other humans in digital proximity.
I've started playing a lot of casual games just with people that I didn't game with before, like family members I didn't game with before, because we wanted to hang out on Zoom or whatever, but I didn't want to do it with nothing to do. So we've done virtual escape rooms, we've played Jackbox online, we've figured out how to play. One of my favorite games to play with them is Monstrosity from Deepwater, because you can just hold the little illustrations up. And from my perspective for work, when COVID started, we had this really cool thing happen where suddenly in the US, we weren't really feeling it yet. We started to hear about what was happening in Asia. And then suddenly one day we had more Italian players online than we had American players online, which is, that just never happens. So we were getting all these like notifications as if we were getting server attacks because we had so much traffic. And it was just every 2 minutes we had to keep like changing those different metrics that would trigger those notifications, because it was all authentic traffic.
I wanted to ask what it was, what
it was
looked
crazy
like when things started rolling in, because I can only imagine that you were like, okay, we need more server space.
So it was Italy, and we all were like, is this real? What's happening? We tried to figure out the source of it, and then we found out that someone had posted that because it's free to join Roll20 and get playing. Somebody had posted on like a free resources for people who were staying at home during the Italian shutdown. And then suddenly it was Greece, and then it was Spain. And then it was just, holy hell, can we keep the servers up? And thank God we had just hired a new CTO in January, and this was mid-March. And she's just, her background is she's from Riot Games, and she's just amazing. And she led us through that like a champion. And
you hired her on, and she was just like
just in the nick of time. Immediately. Yeah, the fire, like she was just onboarded enough to be able to get us through that. So it was really interesting to watch all of that, and all of it sustained. So what's been special for us is hearing these stories of people who like they used to play in college, and they needed things to do while they were stuck at home. So they were suddenly reconnecting with people they hadn't been in touch with it for a while. And you just hear these wonderful stories on social media from people, or people writing in and like being so generous with their praise for what we're doing. And it's really appreciated, because we've all been pulling long hours to keep everything going. So.
Cool. That's a really big, as we brought up from the gaming and everything else, it's been a shift. Right. And when we've seen companies like Board Game Arena and Tabletop Simulator and Tabletopia, where they had to hire community managers and do all these things because there's so many people that are jumping in and playing now, which is really kind of neat. Like we're all playing D&D on all those different things and hobbying and all of that. And it's really kind of cool. And a big thing too that I think has changed, just to kind of throw it out there, is how much the board game Twitch community has grown. As of March last year, I could probably name 3 or 4 people that were active on Twitch. And now there's over 150, right, that are actively doing things that are and there's group Twitch networks now, and they're doing Twitch raids and all these things that we know video games have been doing for years that now is being applied to the board game industry, right? And it's all there, and it's fantastic to see. And there's so many different people that it's not the old guard that are just, here's my YouTube video, here's my thing. And we're seeing all these different ways that gaming is being played. Board gaming is huge on TikTok. I'm going to say that a bunch during this panel. Like,
it's huge. And bless Richard Ankley, aka Tabletop Santa, for all showing us exactly why we all needed to be on TikTok. Because I was not a convert until he showed me raw data, and I was like, oh, okay. And then
it's like this secret, because if you're not there, you don't see that suddenly people have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers. They've never gotten that on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or Twitch. And I know Benita has been big on TikTok, and Raina, and I don't know everybody, but Danny is doing really well before.
Totally. And there's like one Board Games in a Minute, and there's all these different things that are happening, and they're growing their channels from it's like a 5,000 followers to like 3 or 4 that have started since November now have over 300K followers on TikTok.
Yeah.
And they're just coming up with cutesy little things that are all these little jokes we used to make. And it's trying to flex that creative brain, which is just wonderful, because it's not just here's the board game, here's the unboxing, here's this playthrough, like which South Park did that episode last year too, which was a kind of a wonderful tribute on how that whole community has grown. So in that same vein on how we're all playing, how's everybody seeing how board games are purchased right now? Right, we're seeing a huge.
I wanted to say something about this because my local game store, I'm close with them. And one of the things that I heard was that like new games just aren't selling. Like the new games are, some of them are picking up a little bit, but evergreens are selling, or the things that were trending for like, so, and I think that's really wonderful because we got into a weird place in the industry where it was always about like the hotness and the collection. And I think people are actually playing the games instead of leaving them shrink wrapped and collecting a little bit more now, which is really special. And I'm curious if you all as publishers like are seeing any of that.
I mean, just speaking holistically on the indie design, because Darrington still is releasing their first one soon, but the on the indie publishing side, it just depends, right? Storytelling games are performed differently than board games. Role-playing games are real easy to kind of get a zine or a pick up and play, like a small kind of, like Alice is Missing was kind of a perfect result for the time because it was done all through text messaging, right? Those are a little easier, and versus board games, which are, like you said, people, they know what they love, and they might probably be going through their shelf of shame right now. Like, what better time if you've got 4 people to go through your shelf of shame than while in quarantine, right?
Deirdre?
Yeah. For us, our team, we are also known as Prospero Hall. And so we have a lot of work in market in addition to the newness coming out with Funko Games. And we are seeing our back catalog, so to speak, continue to perform very well, and new players coming to the product all the time too. But since it's so well established, lines like our Villainous product. But on the new product from 2020, it was really interesting to us to see things. We released a few games that were playable for 1 to 2 players. And those ones are performing really well, especially for, I know a bunch of us on this panel have children. I mean, you reach a point where your kids are on the screen all the time. It's required. We're on the screen all the time. But here, if you have a game that you can hand them, you guys play it together once, and then it's like, bye-bye, you can play it by yourself, instead of just like, making it up and playing both turns, but actually engineered to play solo. It's really been interesting to see those games really catch hold in the marketplace. And that's, I mean, who we didn't know when we created them that we would need so much solo play. Or
which games are those? I haven't done any like that.
There's the Habit games do that. Peaceful Valley, both Habit and Peaceful Valley, as well as not Gigmic, but the people who did I can see the logo in my head, but people do like Forbidden Desert, Forbidden Island, that publisher. They all have a lot of like Game Right, thank you. But they all have stuff that's really good for like that kind of elementary into middle school age range. Like Haba has games that are like ready for ages 2 and up at that point, like counting and things like that. So I know that, to your point, Deirdre, I definitely have bought, but one of the board games I've definitely been buying is stuff for my kid. Like I've definitely been buying board games for them. So.
Yeah, and from us, we did a game based on the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, and that's for 1 to 2 players. And actually it launched as an exclusive at Walmart. But then we also have this game system called Marvel Battle World, and it's collectible and super expandable, but the entry point is $8.99, right? It's also like, hey, super cheap, and you can play it by yourself. Like, holy cow. Yeah.
Oh, I think I did hear a couple of publishers, because I was really worried about publishers. I mean, I was having a very different experience because of being in digital, but my background's in publishing, and I was so worried about what was happening with publishers. But the ones that were in mass market, like you said, they seem to be doing incredibly well, because there were a lot of people looking for stuff to do, analog with their kids to keep them off screens in the middle of all this. So that's exciting. I guess maybe it was evergreens that were selling in hobby stores or local game stores, and the new stuff might have been moving more in mass market.
And I think also, I know we're talking about purchasing games specifically, but I want to throw Kickstarter in there too, because that's an element of like a way that we buy games that I think we've seen not a ton of drop off there in terms of people supporting that platform and buying games there, because in a way those games are like hopeful for the entire situation. You know, I'm not going to get this for another year, but when I do, we may be back to normal. And so I think people are also there and participating in that community because it does kind of connect us to the after times, right? And I think that's important for a lot of people too. Yeah.
We actually been doing a lot of research on Kickstarter because our first thing is getting really, really close to us kind of announcing what it is. It's a campaign setting for 5th edition based on my old AD&D campaign that I ran.
Awesome.
Good Lord, from the mid 80s to mid 90s, if that dates me at all. So it's been killer coming back to that, but learning about kind of Kickstarter, I've backed a few over time, just kind of seeing people's cool projects. So as a mechanism for really bringing your thing to the world, I'm kind of awed about it all, and it's kind of cool to be learning about how to, the particulars of that economy and the particulars of what make it work. And I love what you said about the aspirational nature of it all. That like we're kind of hoping that, if this thing rocks, it's in part because, people, upon the time of delivery, people will be ready to be together again and actually sit around tables and laugh and roll hot dice. It's kind of the threshold we're all waiting for. But it's been a cool education to kind of get a sense of, how things work outside of the video games business. And with a little more self-determinance, it's been cool to kind of step into this whole new space.
I've really enjoyed the journaling games that I've seen too on Kickstarter, where they're emailing you prompts for Gian Shim did some so you just get an email every day, which is a really nice solo activity also. And, a great way to use all these millions of journals that I've collected over the years. So those are nice little, I don't know, I've really enjoyed that. And I think it's been fun to see some indie creators be agile and creative about the way that they can deliver and still sell new things during COVID.
And that's a good point too, everything with Kickstarter going on, because we've seen it evolve over the last 10 years from where it was like Flame War from Fun to 11 with the Andy Chambers game to now we're having I think we had 2 Kickstarter records set during COVID, right? Like Frosthaven did their thing and a couple other ones are in that nice 11 to 10, 12, 13 million fundraising. I think there's 17 big Kickstarters that all launched earlier this week, right? So it's people aren't slowing down. They're excited to be part of that. I like calling it the Candy Crush kind of thing where you're backing it and now you're trying to go and get more people so that you can hit that next thing. And then you're a part of it, which we all know you're a part of that. And it's fun to get those updates. I always laugh because half my email updates or Kickstarter updates going thing. I just, and so, but as we're going on, that's a big part of what it is. And it feeds that hotness, but at the same time, all right, that's a great point you brought up where it's that, oh man, once this shows up, we're going to be ready to play. We're going to do this thing, which is what we're all looking forward to. Because there's some games that I know we're buying right now where we're like, I'm going to play this so much in 5 months. So on to our next thing here, which we've kind of been beating around a little bit. COVID-19 has obviously changed up how we've done so much in the industry, from marketing, production, logistics, day-to-day, conventions, all of that, which we've talked about a little bit here and there. But I want to put a little spin on it. When things go back to, I don't want to say normal, but when we're able to gather again, what things from this last year do you think are going to stay the same? Are there any things that have changed now in the last year? Do you think we're going to adapt and bring into a post-COVID industry? Deirdre?
Yeah, I think for our team, we're pretty big. Our Funko Game PD team, maybe not big, but like, I don't know, 35 of us, 40 of us. And so what's been interesting, of course, we had to move to platforms like Tabletop Simulator. Maybe we should be on Roll20 instead. But when we were locked down really hard, we had to, right? And then trying to figure out how to continue play testing with humans, because what we make is tactile. It really cannot be replaced by the digital space, truly can't. Like for something we're working on, Fast and Furious, which was just announced, that has, you have to physically move the little cars around on the board. You're, doing stunts and stuff, and you got to occasionally jump out of your car and onto another moving vehicle, as you do when you're in a high-speed heist. But that tactile thing you can't simulate in digital space. And so moving very quickly back to figuring out how to build things, prototype things, and get them into the hands of our playtester community was really important. And so we feel like that's been the hardest thing. And so as soon as we can get back together, having people back in studio playing right there with us is going to be really huge. So we're most looking forward to that, not having the logistics of driving every prototype all across the city again, but kind of had been made do with that. But I think once we get back together, there's things like that, like the game makers, the workshoppers, and the people, actually fabricating things all being together again. But then there's some efficiencies we've really found on our design for graphic design and illustration and stuff. Those members of our team are actually more productive if we leave them alone instead of like wandering by and bugging them all the time. So I think those kind of things will continue to be like, those folks will continue to be at home while the rest of us kind of move back into our physically collaborative space.
Omari?
I think for myself, as a small publisher operating in the space, and I'm also responsible for most of the design work and some of the graphic design too. It has opened, I think, my eyes to the possibilities of living in both worlds and finding kind of what Deirdre was talking about, finding the efficiencies in both, like in terms of iterating through certain design elements. Sometimes it's much quicker and easier to throw that into the tabletop simulator or Tabletopia to test out something maybe small, and actually sometimes just changing the game completely is much easier in that setting versus if we were doing it with physical components. So there's parts of the design space that I think will benefit from that. And I think we'll hold on to some of those things as we move forward, especially, for some small UI things, not having to print and just being able to throw it in there and have somebody digitally test it really quick, not even for a whole entire game. You can get a lot of information very quickly that way, where it would have been a little bit harder to do that if we kind of remained in the space where we only did things in person, which was basically our company's position before COVID.
It seems like that virtual space is really an incredible tool for that sort of back half balancing and like small tweaks, and then instead of having to go and build again, is really much faster.
We had a lot of publishers that really hadn't, they just hadn't moved especially tabletop RPG publishers that really hadn't attended to their space virtually yet. And last year that really blew up. So we've had much improved relationships with tabletop game publishers, and it's been really fun to be helping facilitate their move online, like helping them get better character sheets up that are more robust for their players, making sure that there's really great map packs. I know that Hunters did a great job with putting Alice is Missing up on Roll20. It was part of their Kickstarter, and they showed a really great animation of what it actually looks like inside of the virtual tabletop. And I actually took what Ivan's team did there and used it when we launched our first game that we published. And I think there's some lessons learned. The more people that are doing this virtually, the more that we're all going to be creative together and learn lessons from each other. We grew from I think it was 5 million users that we announced last March. And at a 9-year-old or an 8-year-old company then, and we just announced 8 million users. And I think that we'll probably keep a lot of them. One of the things that we did was launch a mobile app into beta so that when people do decide to go back to playing in person, they can keep the characters that they've built online if they decide to meet in person. But you could still, if your kid's sick at home or whatever, you just don't want to leave the house, you want to have whatever it is, like you can still keep your game going and bounce between virtual and in person more fluidly. So
awesome. One of the things I think is going to stick around too, and kind of just hearing you talk about how There'll still will be people who will want to be home, and there still will be people who are comfortable in that kind of environment but still want to engage, right? I think I learned one of the things I learned this year is that virtual cons, it took a little while for the momentum to build, but I truthfully believe that once this is all done, there will still be a lot of success in virtual conventions, because I think a lot of publishers and people are learning that like that's a really great medium in which to connect, and that the cons, while trust me, I miss conventions as well too, but they just are they're a lot more efficient to get in front of your customers.
Well, they have much bigger reach too. Like we had Gen Con's 60,000 people usually in downtown Indy. Just on Roll20 alone, we had 100,000 people online that Saturday night. So
that's what I mean.
And we only had like 25% of the Roll20 events, or I'm sorry, 20% of the 25% of the Gen Con events were on Roll20. So that's, that there are all these other virtual tabletops out there. There's all kinds of other ways that people don't need a virtual tabletop to play together. So how many hundreds of thousands of people were participating in Gen Con last year?
And there's a whole lot of people who like either A, have never been to Gen Con, or B, do have some kind of like agoraphobia or just fear of those large crowds.
Or they're just international.
Or they're international, right? And these are all people who now can actually come together with people that love the same thing that they do and have that conversation and even play games, when really it was kind of an afterthought of like, oh well, I guess we'll do it for the international audience, right? But now it's really bringing everybody together.
Well, we've been having a big conversation about how do we reduce the barrier to entry to the industry and how are we more inclusive in the industry. And when you don't have the burden of paying to fly somewhere or finding childcare so that you can be away for 4 days straight and basically with no cell service, and it suddenly means that you have a lot more people who you can catch and get access to publishers that are potential designers or artists.
Chris, you had a thing?
Now I forgot what it was. Well, just the idea that we had to learn that over the arc of a number of years. When I was at Blizzard and we did a big BlizzCon in Anaheim every year, thinking, there's some degree of exclusivity. You can only have so many, attendees at that venue. So it tended to sell out super quick. And it was a very intense, the folks that would come over the course of 2 days, had a really intense time. It was super big vibe, but it's just, we learned very quickly, like we have to find a way to, make the broadcast feel meaningful. So, because there's so many more people that, want to, learn about the products or just feel engaged, right? Like feel part of that community. So the frontier of, doing these big streams and providing that content, providing that sense of inclusivity is massive. It will only grow, because as big as these venues can get, it's a fraction of the people out there that might even be in the same town, just couldn't get, just couldn't get a ticket or whatever. But it always really surprised me how big the audience is out there, and their interest in, just feeling part of that moment, when all these stories are dropping, all these new products are being talked about, it's killer to be able to reach all those people these days.
Awesome. We could talk about this for the next 30 minutes, I'm sure. So on that though,
digital rocks. Online rocks, the internet rocks. I mean, we all knew that even before this happened, but now the internet is truly showing all of us just the capacity that we don't have to go and huck and shuck at conventions anymore. And I mean, it's still part of it, but the internet's really just a beautiful thing that helps us get to our customers.
And as we grow more of those spaces in ways, because the wheel doesn't need to be the same every single time, right? So as we grow and change, it's very cool to see that. So on that same boat though, the industry is growing and there are new companies, there are new designers all the time. I always say it's like, 5,000 games come out a year. I'm sure that number has totally changed since I started saying that, from different distributors and Kickstarters and everything else going on. But in the last year as well, and going forward, we've seen a lot of new companies pop up, Rose Gauntlet, Darrington Press, Warchief Games, which is really exciting. you want to share a little bit about that? Like how is that going, making a brand new game company in 2021? Chris?
It's still collating. It's been an amazing experience. We talked a little bit before this panel about just in my experience doing, kind of self-publishing, especially in the realm of tabletop, is utterly unlike everything my experience had led me to feel competent at. So it's kind of this really radical new adventure of kind of learning all these things, just to get product to market. The job isn't necessarily all that different in terms of development. For the stuff I was doing before, it's building worlds, it's building stories, it's trying to draw people into these realms of imagination and get them to interact through these systems. So it's not all that different at a very high altitude, but self-publishing and bringing product to market and learning all these new tools and all these new technologies that exist to really get your word out has been really an adventure. And I guess I can say just for kicks, like there's an amazing freedom that obviously like every self-startup, every kind of self-publisher out there knows that I'm warming to, the idea of just being so much more live in terms of what you can accomplish and the kind of product you can make without feeling the weight of a giant, industry behind you is very, very freeing. So it's been a blast, no whammies so far. And we're having a blast making this thing. And it's been just a total joy, just a total opposite kind of experience from making, the giant, video games, so it's kind of unfettered from, the machineries of that industry. And, I'm very thankful.
It's so interesting because it's on my end, it's the exact opposite. It's the entire flip, because what's happening is a lot of brands are becoming interested in the tabletop space, right? There's a lot of people who are coming into it, and Critical Role has been very tabletop adjacent for a long time, and they've had a lot of great publishers, a lot of great partner publishers like the Op, who are been making great games and doing stuff with it. But Darrington Press came out as a result of that team, that brand who loves board gaming, who loves tabletop so much, and just wanting to express themselves and be able to put that into the market and have that like infrastructure in place. And so while you've been kind of like enjoying the freedom of going into it, I've been kind of going into this world in which I'm now, working with a team that has built this wonderful giant group, a Critical Role, and making content that is both like that goes with the brand, and then discovering new things as well too, like stuff that we're all interested in doing. So, but I'm loving it just as much as you are, because for me it's I guess on a personal level, it's the difference between like driving a tugboat for years, strong but mighty, right, as I toot toot along the lake, right. And now captaining a destroyer in a fleet, right? So a completely different attitude. It's I mean, I'm happy to hear though, it's because it's definitely I know that feeling, Chris, of like that initial stage of just getting so much done so quickly and having that beautiful we talked about it even before we hopped into it, but just only having a few people that you're really pushing forward with. And for me, it's now the infrastructure of having a great team of great people going out to make board games and a whole new scale.
And I can tell, I can anticipate it as kind of like you're riding on a pink cloud, and it feels amazing by way of contrast, but as we get into the deep, dark heart of, dealing with factories and real production and getting product on boats, I'm sure, I'm gonna learn what I don't know pretty quick. But we've got great allies and super experienced folks that have done this over and over and over. So I guess I do have a little guilt in that I'm able to, have my cake and eat it too, for the immediate future. But you never know what things get thrown your way, and
it's always going to be fun.
But I appreciate at this scale we can stay on our toes and match whatever issues come up. It's been like I said, it's just been an awesome adventure. you know.
That's so Omari, with you've been blowing up with all the games you've been doing too lately with Rap Gods and everything there. How's that been?
I actually was gonna kind of jump in on this question because COVID
Go
has
for it. Go
made
for it.
it well, and it lends to what you're asking, but COVID has made so we started in 2017 basically, and this year it's felt like being a new company again. The amount that we've had to relearn and reassess and deal with levels of uncertainty that are very similar to like when we just started. So as much as we've found success in a lot of places, a lot of that felt very experimental, and you know we stumbled into success a few times because so much about what has happened this year has been so unknown. And I think we do have some experience that we could kind of lean into. So I think we made some good choices coming up this year. But we also got lucky a lot because there's just so much in flux that we really just have no idea how people are going to respond to things. So it's been a little bit crazy. I think our approach, especially mine as kind of the face of the company, is to just put feelers out everywhere and just go with whatever feels like it's sticking. Because as much as I can put energy into those things, because it feels like the Wild West a little bit in terms of operating in this space.
Yeah, Deirdre and Amber, you're welcome to hop in too, because you guys have both been growing and changing. Everything is brand new again.
Yeah, on our side, Funko Games is only, they acquired our studio 2 years ago. And really, Funko Games has only been out in the market for 18 months. So we are, even though we're inside of this big, amazing, collectible and toy company, we are this tiny little division that's a startup inside of this big apparatus. And even our studio is separate. We're down in Seattle, and it's still, that startup energy is there, that like bootstrap and make it work, small team, lots of hats. It's a really exciting time. And, with Funko Games, our team is so used to innovating and pivoting, because we had so many clients before we were acquired, that it's really interesting to try to take that same team, and they're all still there, and mold ourselves into a publisher on our own. So that's been it's been really interesting. And of course, like all of you, 2020 was a very big change, and we were only a year into having become Funko Games at that point. So it's a big radical change.
We launched our first piece of first-party content last year. So that was the only comparable sort of new company thing that I because we're just in a really interesting stage of growth right now. And it was there aren't a lot of people. James Introcaso designed it. It's a game called Burn Bright, and it's the first RPG that's ever been designed just for a virtual tabletop. So you can't get a PDF of it. You can't get a physical copy of it. You can only play it in Roll20. And it's been a really interesting experiment, and it's an amazing game, but publishing a game without any of the things that I know how to do, like, selling to distribution and selling to retailers or going to conventions or anything, all these levers that I knew how to pull for marketing were gone. And we were really lucky to have James be such an amazing ally in launching the game with us, because he's just such a source of positivity in the RPG community, and he's a really wonderful leader and game designer. So he was out there as the mouthpiece for Burn Bright in the world, and we were able to do a couple of cool actual plays and get some content out there. But I wonder how it would have been different, had we gone to Gen Con to launch it, had we been able to do organized play in a different way. And I think we now have a full-time game designer. Gabe Hicks is with us full-time now.
Gabe's awesome.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
So we also have, like, as part of our, it's free to play on Roll20. You can pay for a subscription every month, and if you're paying for a subscription, you get a free piece of content every month. So it'll be fun to see what Gabe will be releasing, more and more content, and picking, you know, artists to collaborate with. So it'll be fun to see what he builds on with Burn Bright. Like, I think he'll use the system to do some new things, but now we'll be launching it hopefully we'll go into conventions again soon. So
that's cool, though. Just being bold and putting it on the platform. And again, you've got such a wide user base just to kind of see where it lands. I think that's great. There's a lot of discussion around digital strategy right now about, like, how different people, whether it's board and card or RPG, how to tackle it and what's different. And I think there's some interesting ideas out there.
Yeah, well, and it's like, even the things that you pay for, right? Like, you know, as a marketer, I pay for ad impressions sometimes, right? But I can get that many impressions on our site just because of our monthly active users. So does it make sense to market through some of the typical partnerships that you would have? You know, it's nice to have an excuse to support some of the content creators that are out there that we love. And I think one of the priorities for us has been really trying to show the community that we'd like to build. And so picking the people who are, you know, using safety tools when they're starting a game, and picking people who are, who have diverse casts and come up with creative ways to play and all kinds of things like that. But yeah, it's been fun, and I'm excited to keep doing it.
Awesome. So we're coming close, but I've got 2 more questions I think we can make happen here. So along with all the cool games we're making and platforms we're producing on and online communities and things, a big driver behind that is influencers and then content channels within the industry. So we all know Board Game Geek and Dice Tower, but at the same time, we've seen so many new channels that have been popping up from Twitch, from TikTok to YouTube. Obviously, we can't go to physical shows anymore, but we've been living in these online spaces on our screens, on our phones, you know, doing all these things. And it's been really neat to see who's these positive drivers for diversity, for new content, for all these things in the industry. And I know it's a kind of a random question, but like how does that affect how we do our marketing, right? Like what do we do? How does that affect the games we make? How do we work and make those plans to work with these people in the community? Like, what do you do when you look for certain influencers? How do you find the brand you want to work with? Things like that. Open question. So
I feel like I should answer this question as one of those sort of people in the industry now, because I started a Twitch stream basically this year is when it kind of officially kicked off, when I was finally satisfied with all the tech side of everything, and I think it feels like a tricky space to navigate even now. I think there is a lot of the content creators now are trying to be really mindful of how we present games to our viewers and to our community. And I think the idea of like sponsorships and, you know, paid plays and things like that tends to muddy the waters for viewers in terms of, is this authentic? Is this something I can rely on in terms of like, you know, trusting what they're offering? And so I think it's been a tricky space for content creators to navigate that, because our goal is really to connect to our communities. Like, as an influencer, that's what matters. And so you have to build that trust first, I think, a little bit. And then once you have that, finding partners who are understanding of that and flexible enough to say, yes, this is a sponsored stream, but we may not even cover content associated with your channel or your brand specifically, but we'll talk about you, we'll talk about what you do, but our community is first, and we have to kind of focus on that, operate in that way. And so I don't know now that understanding has really met its head and been a part of the conversations between content creators and publishers, or anybody out there who has a product in the industry that they're trying to promote. So that I think it's going to be slow. It feels like those connections are going to be slow. I'm hoping that they speed up. I'm hoping that's something I get to take advantage of at some point. But as our presence grows, it's going to feel more and more vital. Like Amber said, it's like, what channels do we have access to that aren't the usual ones? And it's, we can see from video games that Twitch is a way to really connect people with games. And the market and the companies are going to want to embrace that, but it is going to be a tricky thing to kind of figure out how to do that in a way that feels good and healthy.
I've really appreciated Twitch lately because they have somebody there who's dedicated basically to tabletop content, and has done a really good job of trying to connect with us, and has gotten some of our stuff featured, and has really been trying to support I think content that builds the kind of community that they want to see, which it matters so much, because one of the biggest things that I've seen with the content creators that I'm close with is how much harassment they've been facing in the community in the last year. And I think it's really difficult. A lot of them aren't making a lot of money, especially in board games. It's a different thing when you're in some other spaces, but you've got people who have to lock down their accounts regularly. They're really working hard to make sure that they are scrubbing all their personal information. They're getting targeted, and there's not much you can do about it, right? So there's like that sense of safety is just so important. And I'm trying to figure out, how do I support the people who are creating content for us and make sure that they feel so, so we have a lot of moderators. We've invested in supporting a sort of a crew of moderators, and we've got really strict code of conduct and community guidelines, but that's where I've been putting a lot of energy. And it's easy to find a lot of people that I want to work with. So my problem is really just figuring out who do I pick to partner with, and how can we best support them while we have a limited staff.
And that's as a publisher and as a content creator, like whether your platform is small and big, like you have an opportunity to go and uplift your creators, right? Like as part of your community, and you have an opportunity to go and find the people who you like. And Omari, what you're saying about like the authenticity of like sponsored versus like organic content, it rings so true, because I know that everybody, depending on how much you love a brand, you have a certain amount of threshold of sponsored content that you'll technically put up with, right? Because to a certain degree that like this is how they get to put food on the table, right? Like that this is how brands interface with influencers in order to keep making the stuff that they love. And it's so different, because we were in the Mad Men era of the 50s, right? Where like you trusted a brand. You didn't trust people, you trusted brands, right? And now we've swung over to the influencer nation, where you trust these people who you're aware of, these individuals, over a brand any day. And now it's kind of becoming this interesting hybrid model where people are now being associated with brands, and they're in a much more big way. But at the same time, you can't go too far in the Mad Men category, where it's like, the spokesperson of a brand, right? Because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel authentic. And, obviously Critical Role's been building a community for years, and critters are always a huge factor in making choices when it comes to type of content and sponsored content, things like that. They only want to do things that really resonate with the audience and that feel good and that they can understand. Then even on a smaller level, like I love seeing it when publishers go and make Twitch content, regular Twitch content, not just like a one-off here or there or a 3-episode breakdown. Like when they go and invest into the platform, and it's not even so much even investing into the platform, it's communicating with their community on a regular basis, because now they've turned that brand into a Coca-Cola symbol or a Nike swoosh, and they've turned it into, we're a group of people who are making something for you, and we want you to talk to us and be with us. And I don't know, it's fascinating, right? Like just how it changes over time, how the pendulum swings. So I ramble a lot. I do that a lot.
And the pendulum can swing fast.
And yes, the pendulum can swing fast.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we've hit our minute. If we were in a regular panel thing, someone would have had the 5-minute sign up. So we'll take that as a thing. So what we're going to do now is everybody can go around, introduce themselves again, where they can find you online, where they can find your company online, and then also if you want to promote selflessly, go on that soapbox and talk about something coming out when the show hits. This is a good time to do that. Deirdre, take us off.
Oh boy, thanks. It's been so much fun to be on this panel with you all. I'm very inspired by all the great work you are all doing. This is very exciting. Thanks for inviting me, Ross. At Funko Games, a lot of our 21 work hasn't been announced yet. Excited for all that's to come, but we have announced our Fast and Furious game, which I'm super pumped about, and I think it's going to be it's just cuckoo bananas. You get to play as one of the team. You get to pick your ride. You get to like do a heist, and you do all sorts of crazy things. Drive under semis and up into them, and like launch your car up at a helicopter. I mean, it's great fun, and we're really excited to see that hit tables everywhere this spring. But really, it's such an honor to be part of the tabletop game community. It's so inspirational and just full of amazing people doing great work. And thank you for having us on today.
Thank you. Amber?
I'm Amber Cook. I'm the Director of Marketing for Roll20. I'm 100 Games Project online on social media, and that's my tiny little personal gaming blog. I work at Roll20, and our website is roll20.net, where you can come play RPGs virtually with all of your friends. By the time this comes out, we will have a mobile app in open beta. And what's really fun, the new fun thing that I'm excited about at Roll20 is Companion's Tale will be live. We just converted that. It's an indie game that's really fun from a woman who designed it and had it on itch that we picked up. So cool. Go try something new on Roll20.
Thank you. Ivan?
I'm Ivan Van Norman. You can find me at Hydra_Lord at all of the social medias everywhere. I hail from back in my StarCraft 1 days. And I'm, again, the head of Darrington Press, which is Critical Role's publishing company that was just announced back in last October. Critical Role's making board games now. The first one coming out is going to be Uk'otoa, which you may have seen in January's Game Trade magazine. It's going to be coming out here. If this is coming out March. Well, there'll be announcements online soon, but as with all beautiful things, when it comes to shipping and stuff like that, we're all going to be looking at the process of announcing a street date here very soon. But it's great. I've had it in my hands. I've been slowly thinking about the color scheme of what to paint my Uk'otoa mini at the moment as I'm holding on to it. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a fun little semi-co-op card game that you play on your table. So that's me.
That's great. Thank you. Omari?
Yeah, so Board Game Brothas has a couple things happening this year. Mainly Hoop Gods and Rap Gods are being Rap Gods is being reprinted. Hoop Gods is going to be releasing in the fall. So and we just redid our website and put pre-orders up on there. And we added some merch up there, so you can get t-shirts and stickers with Hoop Gods and Rap Gods logos. My personal favorite is in Hoop Gods, we have goat cards, which allow you to do like super street ball moves. And we designed a little goat that's kind of a refashioned version of the Chicago Bulls logo. And it's adorable. I absolutely love it. So I'm encouraging you to go get some goat stickers and put them everywhere. So I just see them randomly in the streets. But yeah, definitely please support us there. You can find us online at bgbrothas. At basically on all the social medias. And also, if you are a designer or interested in becoming a designer, this year I've also became the president of the Independent Game Developer Network. And so, yeah, we're doing things just to support creators in the industry, in board games and in RPGs. So if that's you, you can find us at IGDN Online on the social medias, but also that's our website. That's me.
Awesome. Thank you. Chris.
Well, I'm Chris Metzen. I'm the creative lead at Warchief Gaming. We're a new game studio announced not too long ago. I want to say, guys, thank you for letting me be on your panel as the, clueless new guy in the space. It's cool to get to talk to all of you and learn a little bit about, this new frontier for me. We're actually, as of the time this panel drops, I think we will have actually announced our first product, which is a campaign setting for 5th edition, based on my old AD&D campaign. It is called Ouroboros, Coils of the Serpent. So yeah, I'm super excited about this product and for our company to get up and running. And it feels good to be building worlds again. To be very honest, it feels very, very good. So we'll be talking about our product more and more over the intervening weeks. So again, guys, thank you for letting me be part of your party today.
Well, thank you for coming on. And I'm Ross Thompson. I'm a marketing manager at the Op. The Op, you can find us at theop.games online or the Op on all of our social media channels. We have a lot of cool stuff coming out. I think by this time, Critical Role Munchkin will be out, and then Quest of Yore Barley's Edition, which is the role-playing game from the movie Pixar's Onward. So that's super fun. It's got 13 quests in it where Barley takes you on it, and it's Barley's Edition too. So the cards have little doodles on them in cheese puff stains on it, and
so cool.
it's a blast. We just finished doing a campaign last year where I played like a Manticore prince and did a whole thing. It was fantastic. All quests start at the Manticore's Tavern, right? So it's good stuff. Yeah, right. So that's going great. And at the same time, Deirdre, yep.
Can I play as a gelatinous cube in that? Or
so we don't have gelatinous cubes, but it's all fantastical creatures. So you can be mermaids and centaurs and all kinds of good stuff.
Great. What are those trash-eating unicorns?
100%. Yeah. But right now it's a great time to be a game designer. Right now is a great time to get into games and do all these things. So if you really enjoyed this panel, dive deep, find these people online, follow their stuff, do things. Anybody can be a gamer. Anybody can design games. Make it happen. Now is the time to join the industry if you aren't already. And thank you so much for WonderCon for allowing us to have this panel. And be sure to check out all the great content they have going on for the rest of WonderCon at home as well. Thank you so much and have a great day.